Hello, this is Professor Laird, and welcome to the Spring 2021 American Government class. This is going to be an online course where I'll be posting video lectures on Moodle every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This is our first video for the course, and we are going to be talking about the syllabus in detail. It is extremely important that you understand exactly what is required of you for this class. It will be an ongoing class where we will be looking at it almost like a classroom class, where every Monday and Wednesday and Friday will be the days where the video lectures are posted, and that's where you will also respond to a discussion forum on those days in order to be counted attendance for the class. So let's go ahead and get right on into the syllabus. Now, this is a late start class, but you will be getting the same information that you would be getting in a normal semester's course. It's just that it will be a little bit more condensed, and we will be moving along pretty quickly. That's why I'll be posting videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So have your syllabus handy with you so that we can follow along as we go. This is the latest edition of the textbook that we'll be using. I'll talk about that here in just a second. So let's look at the syllabus. As I said, this will be a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday class where video lectures will be posted. On those days, you'll be required to watch the video lectures on those days, as well as respond to a discussion forum by the end of that day. We'll talk about the schedule here in a second, but in order to be counted attendance for that day, you'll have to respond to the discussion forum by the end of that day. This is my email, rlaird@bergen.edu. If you need to get a hold of me, that's the best way to reach me. You can also set up video conferences, one-on-one sessions through WebEx if you have any questions or concerns that you want to talk about. You can read the course description, but we are going to be talking about the basics of U.S. government, federal government, national government, the political system. We'll be looking at the beginning, the roots of our Constitution, at the basic institutions that have evolved over this time, the role of the people, the role of parties, interest groups. We'll be looking at economic policy and foreign policy. I'll also be touching quite a bit on the use of objective critical analysis in order to learn and understand the basic concepts, and these will be very valuable also in writing your class paper that we'll talk about here in a few minutes. The textbook is American Government, Brief Introduction. Latest edition is the 16th edition. It's also online, where there is the online page right there. It is very important that you get that book in as quickly as possible. Most of my lectures come from this book, and it will also be in the same order of this book, although I will be covering things that aren't in the book as well, but want to get that in as soon as you can. I'll be making ample use of Moodle. You will want to check in on Moodle every single day. That's where the video lectures will be posted, as well as any other supplemental material. Tests will be taken on the Moodle page. Any other assignments, any other perhaps quiz type formats would be posted on Moodle. Students should also keep up with current events on politics and government through credible news sources. This will help you in choosing your paper topic that we'll talk about here in a few minutes. I'll also be showing you how to access the library databases for peer-reviewed academic journals. These are extremely important. This is where scientific studies get published, and I use them and refer to them so often. I even use the acronym PRAJ, PRAJ. So when I'm talking about that, you will know that I'm talking about peer-reviewed academic journals. Extremely important. We'll be getting into that. This is extremely important. Let's talk about online course participation. One of the biggest issues that we have with online courses is lack of participation by the students. They are not keeping up. They are not plugging in on a regular basis. They are falling behind. So this is extremely important. I cannot stress this enough. This is not going to be a self-paced course. You can't just check in every now and then when you feel like it and then catch up with everything that you missed. It's not going to work that way. If you miss a Monday lecture and fail to respond to the discussion forum on that day, you will be counted absent that day. You will have to keep up on a daily basis. I'm trying to make this class as interactive as possible. I want to treat everything as though it's a classroom course. The only difference is instead of driving to the campus and sitting in the classroom, you'll be watching my lecture on the video. I will be giving you the exact same lecture that you would be getting if you were sitting in the class. You just won't see me as much. You'll just be looking at the material. But it will be the exact same material. So you will want to keep up with this class on a daily basis. You will want to check your school email. This is not any other personal email, because whenever I post an announcement or send out a course message through QuickMail out of Moodle, it will go to your school email. You will want to check your school email on a daily basis. Check in on Moodle every single day. Video lectures will be posted each Monday and Wednesday and Friday mornings, at least by 9 o'clock. And then by noon, typically I will post a discussion forum that you'll respond to. And then after you respond to that discussion forum and post your response, then you'll be counted present for that day. These will be done every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The deadline to respond to the discussion forums will be 9 p.m. that evening, each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So this is extremely important. The video lectures should be up by 9 o'clock on that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. And you'll have basically a 12-hour window from 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 p.m. at night in order to watch that video, which is going to average about 35 minutes. So you'll have basically a 12-hour window to watch about a 30 to 35-minute window. And if you are unable to do that, I would recommend that you not take the course. You have to be able to do that in order to keep up with the course. Also, by noon, the discussion forums will be posted. So you will have a 9-hour window in which to respond to a discussion forum that might take you about 15 minutes at the most, depending on what the discussion topic is. So you'll have a 9-hour window to respond to a discussion forum that might take you 15 or 20 minutes at the most on average. And if you're unable to do that, don't take the course. You will need to do that in order to keep up with the course and be counted present for that day. So that is extremely important. Attendance, as I said, will be taken each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday based on the responses to the discussion forums. You will have to watch the video lecture first. If you do not watch the video lecture and then go ahead and respond to the discussion forum, you will be counted absent. You have to watch the video lecture first. Then you go to the discussion forum and then post your response to whatever it is I might be asking that day. Typically, it'll have something to do with that video for that lecture for that day. You'll have until 9 p.m. that evening to respond to the discussion forum. If you do not respond before that 9 p.m. deadline, you'll be counted absent for that day. There are no backups, there are no extensions, there are no makeups. If you miss that deadline, you're absent. So I will not be responding to any emails asking me to extend that. If you miss it, you miss it. It's just like if you fail to make it to class, you're absent. I can't go back in time and start that class back up and let you come and attend that class. Can't do that. So the same thing is going to happen here. We will be moving on from one day to the next. Each absence, just like I would in a classroom class, you'll be deducted 5 points off from your attendance grade. Not the final grade, but the attendance grade. And we'll get into those numbers here in a minute. So just as I would in a classroom course, If you don't attend the class, you'll be counted absent. Same thing here. If you don't respond to the discussion forum by the 9 p.m. deadline, you'll be counted absent for that day, and 5 points will be taken off of your attendance grade. Well, as I said, we're going to try to treat this as much as possible as like an interactive classroom course that meets on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Keep in mind that if you fail to follow the instructions on the discussion forum, you could potentially have points taken off for that. If you repeat what somebody else has already said in a previous post, that could be points off as well, because we want you to keep active with what other students are also posting and not repeat what somebody else has posted. So that's also part of the participation. Again, you have to watch the video before you respond to the discussion forum. That is a requirement. The discussion forum occasionally could be a group exercise that might require some communication or interaction on that discussion forum through the kind of a group activity perhaps. And even though there's no right or wrong answers to a discussion forum, as I said, points could be detracted for repeating what somebody else has already said, or if you fail to follow the instructions as to what the discussion forum is wanting you to do. So read the previous posts before you submit your response. The forum could also be in a quiz format. That just gives me the flexibility to have everybody post their own answer without the benefit of looking at what everybody else is posting. That is not going to be graded as a test. That is still just part of the participation grade. I'm just putting it in a different format, into a quiz format. That's the only difference that I'm doing there. Now, the attendance and participation in this class will account for 15% of the final course grade. We'll look at those number breakdowns here in a minute, but 15% of your entire course grade is based on this participation. It is your responsibility to keep up with the lectures and discussion forums on that daily basis. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is when those will be posted, and when you will treat those days as class days and respond to the forum in order to be counted attendance for that day. The forum, as I said, will be closed at that deadline. There's no makeups or extensions to the discussion forums. If you miss it, you miss it, just like you would if you did not show up to class. Do not email me asking to extend that. You've been told right now I will not respond to those. If you miss it, you miss it. We move on. No extensions to that discussion forum. Same thing will go with the tests here, as we will talk about next. As far as the tests go, we'll look at the schedule in detail here in a minute, but there will be 3 tests during the course, just as I would in a classroom course. The course will be broken up into 3 sections, and there'll be a test at the end of each of those thirds of the course. Difference here, of course, these will be online tests taken through Moodle. Those 3 tests total will be 60% of your grade, so each test is about 20% of your grade. These tests, of course, since they are online in Moodle, they'll be open book, open note tests, but they will be timed. So this is extremely important. You will have 35 minutes to complete that test, and you will want to be prepared for that test before you start the test. So once again, you watch the video lectures. I would recommend that you take notes on the video lectures. Then when you're preparing for this test, I will post a study guide before that test, so you will know what the topics will be that will be covered on that test. So you'll want to prepare for that test just as you would be preparing for that test in a classroom. Again, you're going to want to prepare for these tests just as you would if it was a classroom test with no open book, no open notes. You're going to want to be prepared for that test because you will not have time to look up the answers on that timed test. You're going to want to be prepared for it. So I cannot stress that enough, because if you send me an email and you're complaining about the time limit, again, I will remind you that the time limit is not going away, and you will want to be prepared for that test before you start it. Now, the tests will be As shown on the schedule, as I said, we'll be looking at Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays on the class days. So you'll see on the schedule on that particular Wednesday or Friday or whatever, instead of a video lecture, that will be the test day. The tests could include multiple choice. They could have matching, fill in the blank, true, false, short answer, and short essay questions. Every test will probably have at least 2 short essay questions. These do not need to be elaborate since it is an online test that's timed, but you will want to demonstrate your fundamental understanding of that question in complete sentences in your own words. So that's part of being prepared, because you'll know what some potential questions that will be asked on the test. So you want to be prepared before you start the test, and then you'll write your short essay question in your own words. Keep in mind that if you just copy and paste a list of bullet points that are shown in the lecture, that will not get any credit. Do not copy and paste anything. You're going to want to display some understanding of that question in your own words. The test will be treated pretty much like as far as deadlines go, like the discussion forums. You'll have until 9 o'clock to take that test. Now, the test will be posted typically by 12 noon. So you'll have a 9-hour window in which to take that 35-minute test. The test period will shut off right at 9 o'clock. So you'll want to start the test at least by 8:25 p.m. in order to get the full time for that test. But literally the test will be posted by about noon, and you'll have all the rest of that day, a 9-hour window in which to take that test. I'll also post a question and answer forum a couple of days prior to the test, along with the study guide, so that if there's any questions that anybody has about the material on that test, I can respond to those on that forum, so everybody in the class can see my response and get the benefit of that preparation for the test. Now, this is a big one. This is pretty much what you might call a semester killer. If you do this, you have to keep up. You have to know when that test is. If you do not take that test on that day by that 9 p.m. deadline, you'll get a 0 for that test. And if you email me a couple of days later, once I send out the grades, if you email me a couple of days later and say, Mr. Professor, I guess I need to take the test. Well, no, it's done. It's gone. It's not fair to the other students. It doesn't work that way. If you don't show up for a test, just like in a classroom, if you just don't show up for the test, what do you think that tells the professor? That tells the professor that you're not engaged in this course. You're not giving it a priority. You're not even keeping up enough to know when the tests are. You've already read the syllabus before we started this video. You know exactly when those tests are, so there's no excuse. There are no makeups, no extensions, no extra credit for missing a test. Now let's talk just a couple of minutes here about the paper assignment. I do not want to dwell too much on the paper assignment because we can get into those details later. The main thing that you want to be thinking about early on is what topic do you want to write about. So for the paper assignment, and we'll look at the schedule here in a minute, that you'll know when I will have that paper topic summary due. But for now, just be thinking about a topic that you would like to write about, current topic that is relevant to national government or politics, and that could be a lot of things. Pretty much any issue out there in American society today is going to affect government, or government's going to get involved in that one way or the other. So it's wide open ball game there as far as topics to choose from, and you will be analyzing that topic as to how it's being dealt with by government, or how it's affecting our politics, what policies are being done to address it, things like that. We'll be getting into that more and more as we go. For now, you just want to start thinking about an interesting topic to write about. It might be one that's relevant to your major. That might be a good topic to look at, or a topic that you're curious about or wanted to learn more about. Be careful about picking a topic that you think that you're very strong, have a strong opinion about, because that's going to potentially put some bias into that, and that's what we're going to try to avoid. I'll talk about that here in a minute. We want this to be a critical, objective analysis of that topic. So you're going to tell me what you've learned about it. You're not going to be giving me your opinions of what you think about this or that, or what's wrong with the world. That's not the object of the paper. As far as your topic goes, what I'll want on Friday, April 9th, is a half-page summary. This will be in a Word file so that I can give you comments back on that file. I can utilize that particular software and put comments on that and email it back to you. That's why, it's not that I have stock in Microsoft or anything like that. It's just that Word file is so common and so prevalent that everybody should be able to access a Word file and attach that to the Moodle form that I set up. Actually, all of my writing assignments will be double-spaced, 12-point font Times New Roman with 1-inch margins. Every assignment that you turn in, you'll want your name on the top, a title of it, and then in this particular format. The summary will describe what you want to write about and why. Should include one credible news source that has helped you to learn a little bit about that topic as far as what interests you about it. If a topic summary is not received on the date it is due, that's the same as being absent for that day. In the classroom, if I had an assignment for you to turn in that day, there's a penalty if you don't turn it in on that day. This is part of the college requirements, is following instructions, paying attention, turning things in on time, being held accountable, being held responsible. That's all part of the old college experience here. You're preparing for your professional career, so you want to start being professional. And if it's due on that day, then that's when it should be turned in. If it's not turned in on that day, it'll be the same as being absent for that day. You could be asked to resubmit your summary if it's not clear, if it's too vague, not specific, or if too many other students are also looking at that same topic. Now, there's no penalty for that. What I'm going to have you do is resubmit, give me your second choice or whatever, or tie that down a little bit, be a little bit more specific on what you want to focus on. No penalty for that. We're just trying to get these topics locked in as soon as possible. And this is a class relatively small enough where we can spread these topics out. There should be no topics that are repeated between any two students. Bottom line is your topic needs to be approved before moving on to the next phase of the paper, which would then, of course, be looking up your peer-reviewed academic journals about that. And we will talk more in detail about the peer-reviewed academic journals. I'll be also posting a video about them. I'll also be posting a video that's kind of summarizing your requirements for your paper. Keep in mind, failure to turn in any assignment by the required deadline will be treated the same as an absence. Okay, now I'm going to talk about this later on, but your paper, your final paper, which is going to be 4.5 pages minimum, that's not including your reference page, that will be due on Monday, May 3rd. These are your basic format requirements here, but the thing is that I'm going to be talking about this a lot more detail later. I'm going to try to prepare you as much as I can to write an interesting, informative, critical analysis of that issue. So I'll be posting a PDF file guide to writing your paper. And as I've already talked about before, the paper. In any assignment that I ask, I want you to start thinking analytically. I want you to start thinking objectively, because that's the best way to start learning something. If you already think you know what's right and wrong with the world, that's going to prevent you from learning. So you want to open your mind up, and for the purpose of learning and understanding what's going on and why, what's happening, how come, what for. That's what we're trying to do in this class. The paper, particularly, is not for the purpose of expressing your opinions or telling me what you think about this or that. It is to demonstrate what you have learned from your readings on that topic. Most importantly, those peer-reviewed academic journal readings that are studying that issue. So if you read a lot from credible sources and describe what you've learned, you're in good shape. Read a lot and tell me what you've learned. Do not copy and paste anything. We'll talk about citations and citing formats. We'll talk about that in more detail later. Bottom line, students are graded on their ability to gather this credible information from legitimate sources and display your understanding of that topic in your own words. That's powerful. When you do that, you're learning something. When you read these sources and you make your notes and you craft that into your own narrative and then put it on your own paper and describe that to somebody else, what you've learned, that's when learning really starts to occur. The honor code is always into effect. Any form of cheating will not be tolerated and could result in expulsion from the school. Students will not communicate any information regarding the test once that test period starts. Now keep in mind, as I said, a couple of days before the test, I'll be posting a Q&A forum where anybody can go in there and ask a question about the test and I can respond and everybody can get the benefit of that response. But once that 12 noon period starts from 12 noon to 9 p.m. on that day of the test, there'll be no communications at all regarding the test. Each paper, of course, will also be the student's own work. No plagiarizing, of course. Whether it's the paper or the test, any suspicious similarities between any student's papers or any test answers that could warrant an investigation. So don't even think about it. Don't go there. Do not copy and paste anything under any circumstances. Now let's talk for just a few minutes about the grades. The 3 tests will be 20% each for 60% of your total. You have to stay engaged in this course. This is the single most important piece of advice that I will give you. You have to give this class a priority. If you don't, you will not do well at it. If you feel like that, oh gosh, well, I can go do my other stuff, and I know we're all busy, right? Some of us work full-time jobs perhaps, but you've got to make the commitment to give this class a priority. If you don't, you will not do well in it. If you don't keep up, you will not do well. And if you miss a test, you will most definitely not do well because that's 20% of your grade flushed down the toilet. I wish I had my sound effects here. Kaploosh. Follow the schedule because there's no makeups, no extra credit, no extensions on the tests. For the paper, that's 25% of your grade. So you want to give that some thought and put some effort into that paper because that's a big chunk of your grade. There is a late penalty if the paper does not get turned in on time, and there are no incompletes given on the course under any circumstances. The participation, as I said, is 15% of the grade and no excused absences. In other words, as I've said before, and I'll say it again, if you missed that deadline for that forum, it's gone, it's passed, it's done, you're absent, we move on. Need to make that very clear. Now let's talk about the class schedule. Parts here that we've already talked about. The deadline to respond to each of the discussion forums is 9 p.m. that evening. And as I said, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday will be class days. This is a condensed class, so we're cramming it together into more classes over this shorter period of time. We're scrunching this up. This is condensed. All assignments that are required for any particular assignment, they also need to be posted by 9 p.m. on the day they are due, such as the paper topic summary or the final paper. The deadline, as I said, to complete the tests will be 9 p.m. on that day that the tests are scheduled. So those points right here hold true throughout the entire semester. All right, so looking at the schedule today, right now, we're talking about this one right here, introduction to the course, particularly the syllabus. Then we're going to get right on into the book, chapter 1, talking about some kind of basic terminology, points, ideas that we need to get across right off the top of the course there, particularly the concept of liberalism. Chapter 2's got a lot of stuff in it, so I'm breaking it up. I'm going to put out a separate video on why we have a Constitution, extremely important. Then we're going to talk about what's actually in the Constitution. I'll post that. You will read the Constitution, and then we will look specifically at some of the primary points in the Constitution. And then also, after the Constitution was signed by the framers, they had to sell it to the states. And that included, most importantly, the Federalist Papers, which we'll talk about a couple of those, and then the Bill of Rights, because the Bill of Rights was promised very early on in order to get the states on board with ratifying the Constitution. I'm also going to post a video just talking in general about the class paper assignment. Chapter 3, we are going to look at federalism and the separation of powers. Chapter 4, we'll be looking at civil liberties and civil rights, particularly through historical timeline as how those have progressed over the past 200 plus years. Also a short video on the 12th Amendment, which has to do with the Electoral College. And then we see right here, April 7th, test number 1, which will be covering chapters 1 through 4. That test will be posted on Moodle by noon, and you'll have 35 minutes to complete that test in one sitting, and the test period will close at 9 p.m. Then in the second third of the course, I want to talk about the scientific method. This is applicable to all the classes that I teach because we want to maintain this appreciation for a systematic scientific process in order to try to learn as to what's going on out there in the world, how the world works, and why human beings do the things they do. Also on this day, so immediately after the first test, is when I will want your paper topic summary. All I need in this case is just a half page of a Word file describing to me what topic that you want to write about. How are you going to hone in on that topic that you're going to analyze? Then we're going to be talking about Chapter 5, Congress. Chapter 6, the presidency. Chapter 7, I'm going to break that up into 2 sections. I'm going to have a video lecture just looking at the structure of the executive branch, and then another video lecture looking at the bureaucracy, which is the function of the executive branch. Chapter 8 is the federal courts. Then I'll be posting again a Q&A forum prior to test number 2. April 23rd, be the second test covering chapters 5 through 8, scientific method. Once again, that test period will be from 12 noon to 9 p.m. You'll have 35 minutes to complete that test in one sitting within that 9-hour window. The final third of the course, Chapter 9, Public Opinion and the Media. Chapter 10 is Elections. Chapter 11, Political Parties. And as you notice, every one of these video lectures is followed by a discussion forum in which you will respond to that discussion forum, whatever the question may be, and you'll respond to that by 9 p.m. that evening in order to get credit for attendance that day. Also on this particular day, I'm going to post a backing up video on peer-reviewed academic journals back here, PROJ. I've already talked about those a couple of times already, so that's preparing you for your sources and your citing. Jumping ahead a little bit, this is going to be a shorter video here. This is just finalizing your paper. Before you turn in your paper, here's another video that's giving you some things to look for in finalizing your paper. Then Chapter 12, video lecture, will be on interest groups. Chapter 13, this is part of our condensed course aspect here because typically I divide this one up into 2 lectures, but I'm posting both video lectures on economic policy on that day, as well as the final Chapter 14, Foreign Policy. There's 2 video lectures on that one as well, and I'm posting both of those on that day. And then Test 3 will be on Monday, May 10th, covering those final chapters. And then The rules, of course, all apply again through all three tests. That is going through the syllabus in detail, and you're going to want to keep that syllabus. I would get a hard copy of that and keep it in my folder or in my notes for the class, and keep that as part of my calendar to read that on a regular basis to keep up with what's going on. And as I've said before, the online courses, the biggest challenge is on you for the most part, because you're going to have to put in a little bit more effort to keep up, to read the instructions, to follow along, stay engaged, make this course a priority, because you're not having to drive to the campus and sit in the classroom. Now it's on you to watch these video lectures and keep up with the course. And trust me, probably no one would rather be in the classroom than me. I love teaching this material. I'm fascinated by this type of political process and human behavior and all that sort of thing. I really love teaching this material. I would much rather be doing it in person, but we've got to deal with this. We've got to make it work, and unfortunately it puts a little bit more of the burden on you to read everything that I put out. Read it thoroughly, follow the instructions, keep up, stay engaged, don't miss deadlines, don't miss tests. If I could say it again, I would, right? Because this is extremely important. If we want to make this online learning work, going to have to put the priority into it and keep up, stay engaged, stay focused, be committed to the course. Okay, so that covers the syllabus. This is our first video, and stay tuned. The next video will be getting right into chapter 1 of the text for government and politics. Okay, so then I guess I'll be seeing you in class.